Hi everyone, hope you're all well. As ever, thank you for stopping by at my channel. Today I wanted to do a video in terms of how I go about doing my retouching. And I'll be completely honest with you, I am a photographer as opposed to a retoucher. And retouching is something that I've had to learn over the years, and it's a little bit difficult to do if I'm completely honest. Sometimes it's perfectly okay to outsource this to somebody who specifically does retouching, because they are going to be an expert in that chosen field, and it's well worth considering that depending on sort of the commission. And I tend to find, especially when you work on bigger commissions or in a digi team as such, photographers are great at taking pictures and having the creativity to see that. Retouchers are phenomenal at dealing with skin tones and dealing with issues that you may come across with skin tones. So for me, sometimes it's the right scenario to pass work on to a retoucher. In other scenarios, of course, as a photographer, especially a portrait photographer, you're going to need to be able to learn how to do this yourself, and it's crucial to do that. And I really struggled using Adobe's solution to do this, because you're forever working between Lightroom and Photoshop. It's quite difficult to do that. Of course, you can stick in Photoshop, but I found it very difficult to do that. Now, since making the transition to using Capture One, I found that I can do all of the things I need to do within one complete software, which is fantastic. So kind of amalgamating the Photoshop and Lightroom solution into one, which is great for the modern photographer that has to a lot of the times be everything of your own business, your own accountant, your own marketing, your own salesman, your own photographer, your own retoucher. So yeah, I wanted to show you today how I go about retouching an image. And also, at the end of this video, I'm going to be giving you a unique discount code that will give you 10% off of any Capture One products. Now, this code is available for other videos, but it's well worth watching the video to see what can be done. Of course, download a 30-day free trial, and if you're happy with it, take it on at a 10% discount, which you can't get anywhere else. So stay tuned and you'll find out a little bit more for that. In terms of what I'm retouching, so I was recently commissioned to shoot the launch of a new mobile phone for HTC. So you can see here there's a young lady brandishing the phone, and we shot this in central London. Now you can see I took a fair amount of images. There are 112 images in total, so there's a huge range of images and huge styles. And as we went on, we started to incorporate more lighting. So this is artificial lightings here, so you can see the way it's shot kind of gets rid of a lot of the needs to retouch, and that's kind of what I like doing as a photographer. I like to get as much right as possible in camera, but there are times where this isn't possible. And if we go to the beginning of the shoot, this is me trying to calibrate and work out how I can get the image looking right. So you can see here our shutter speed is 1600, and we shot at 1.4, so nice and open. And then if we go back to that other image, we can see that we brought that shutter speed down to let more lighting, and we still shot at the same number. So I do as much as I can in camera, but there are times you may come across an image. So for instance, if I wanted to use this one, how do I get this right to use it and hand it over to a client such as HTC? So this is how I would go about doing it. Now obviously the image is a lot darker because of the shutter speed, it's cut out a lot of light. So what I want to do is I quite like the background being as dull as that. So I want to do a few things. Overall, I'm going to bring the image up, okay, only slightly. So I marginally bring the image up. If I ever want to go back and look at what I'm doing, if I hold Alt and push this key here, this will give me a refresh in terms of where it originally was at and where I am. And I'll be using this throughout the whole video to reference back to the original image to make sure that it's in the right place. Okay, so fantastic, we've got that going on. Now, where I'm going to start is I want to bring out the overall subject. So I want to bring out the girl, her hair and her jacket. Now you can stage this out. So for instance, if I was going to stage this out, depending on the commission and how much time you have to get it done and how adept you are in terms of using this software or using any software, it may be easier to do one fell sweep or to stage it out. Now if you were going to stage it out, what you would probably look at doing is you would create layers. This one would be jacket, for instance, and then from here, if I hit M, So I need to increase that. Bear me 2 seconds. My brush is really small. I'm going to drag that up to probably 119, somewhere around about there. So if I wanted to, you could stage this out by doing things separately. So I could do the jacket. So really roughly, I'm just taking on as much of the jacket as possible. I could drag that down through to there. Do that, done. Okay, fantastic. From there, what I would do, just hit in here and fill mask. It will fill that whole area in for me. So I could stage this out. I could do this for jacket, then I could do it for the hair, and then I could do it for the face. And that is the way you should do it professionally and correctly, and the way a retoucher would do it, because the tones throughout here are very different. The tone in the jacket is very similar, but the way the light hits it and the contrast allow it to move between different shades. The hair, of course, there's a lot of different shades in there. So you'd want to stage it out. Maybe this part here, then this part, and the face you would stage out, maybe here. The nose, you can see it's quite exposed there, so it's a lighter color. The forehead is roughly the same here. So you would stage it out as such. Now, what I want to do is I want to bring up the overall brightness of the subject. So bear with me 2 seconds as I do this, and I'll talk through as we go through this. Cool. So here we go, and yep, you can see that I overshot that with my pen. So at the moment I'm using the Wacom. If I go back and just do undo, I'm using the Wacom, pretty much the basic version. The reason it's the most basic version is I travel a lot and I don't want huge amounts of hardware that costs a huge amount of money to get beaten up on site. So all I'm doing is I'm just bringing this out, and what this is going to do is this is going to give me the ability to improve how that jacket's looking. Okay, so I'll just try and cover as much of the jacket as I possibly can. And I'm really simply, okay, once I've done that, where I'm going to go from there is I can go into my adjustments. I've got the ability to adjust the whole jacket. I can blow this out, of course, and it starts to look very unreal. So I don't want to go to that extreme. What I also want to do is if I go back to my layer, I want to feather mask it slightly. And this will allow me to sort of look at how the edges work. Now at the edges there it's quite intense and quite sharp. I don't want to do it too much, so I'm probably going to give myself a little bit more scope. Drop that up to about there, apply, done. Okay, so if I push M, so this is how I'm looking. I go back. Where do I go? So there is my jacket. Now, if I wanted to edit it even further, I can play with the contrast as such. All I'm really looking to do is just get it to pop a little bit more. That's where we were originally. This is where I'm going to take it to. Just so there's a slight jump in terms of the jacket. Now, from there, of course, I need to add another layer. So if I go down to my layer, hit this plus sign here, this is going to give me the opportunity to add another layer. This one I'm just going to call hair. So I add my hair in there, fantastic. Push B, gives me access to my pen. I'm going to start colouring this in. If you don't see where the pen is going, hit M, and that's going to bring that up. Now remember I said to you I could stage the hair out. So I could stage, what I would probably do is stage this part out, and then I would do the part lower down separately because it's a different shade. But for purpose of exercise, just to show you what we're trying to achieve, I'm just gonna do it all. And this is not how a professional retoucher would do it. This is, for this client, this will be done professionally, but I'm using the images just as a sample to give you an idea of how it all works. And I like the image because there's a lot of variance in color, and what we're trying to do is, in a lot of portraiture, it's the person you're taking a picture that's the key item, and that's what you want to make pop. Now in this it's a little bit different because we're trying to advertise the launch of a brand new phone, so what we're looking to do is get the handset to pop, but within that the model still needs to be popping and looking good and commercially usable as an image. So we just go through here as such. Get as much of this as possible. Drag that little part down there. Great. Got this. I won't do that all because it sits quite over the jacket. Pull that in there. I'm going to leave a little bit close to the phone off, and the reason being is because I'm going to get the phone to pop it a little bit later on. So if it's surrounded by a nice little edge of darkness, it will stand out just a little bit more. And of course, you would zoom in a little bit closer, but as I said, this is kind of like slapdash. Brilliant. So I'm in there now. I then head back. I'm just going to bring up the exposure of the hair. And you can see our hair stands out just a little bit more. Of course, always remember, if we hold that, we can get an idea of originally where the image is gone, and this is where we're getting to. Pull the brightness up as well. There we go. So the hair's just got a little bit more to it. Fantastic. So these are really simple on the surface changes. Now the next thing I'm going to be looking at doing is the mobile phone. So if I head back into my layers, I'm going to add an additional layer, and this is going to be called phone. Very simple. Brilliant. Now we're done. Hit B for our brush, and what I'm going to do in this one is I'm going to bring up the exposure of the overall phone. Once I've brought up the exposure, I'm also going to play with the contrast. And the reason being, as you'll see in a second, because of the way the phone is reflecting light, by bringing up the contrast, we can make it pop a little bit more. So let me just get this covered. And just for you guys to know, so this was shot with the Samyang 1.4 FE lens, the 35mm, and it was shot on the Sony A7R II. So the files are huge. The files are sitting at nearly 85 megabytes each, which I think is great for commercial work because there's so much raw data to play with when you do get into the editing process. And I've always been a Sony shooter. There's previous videos on my channel about using Capture One and tethering as a Sony shooter. Years and years and years ago, being a Sony shooter was massively frowned upon, and over the last few years they really have sort of turned up a notch in terms of what the hardware can do, and making use of the sensors that they were previously putting in everybody else's cameras, because there's no industry secrets there. They were putting the sensors in a lot of other people's cameras long before. So I'm just going to zoom in, and the reason I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to change my brush size because I just want to get between the fingers. Cool. So yeah, so I'm a Sony shooter, shot on the A7R II. I am considering moving to the A7 Mark III. The reason I haven't done just yet is I'm really worried about giving up the megapixels, because once you're used to working with that much rich data, to lose it, you're kind of like fearful. But I have played with it. I'm massively impressed with it, and I probably will purchase it to go alongside shooting with this. So anyone that uses an A7 Mark III, let me know what you think of it, and yeah, be interested, because I think I'm already in love. I just need to commit to buying it. Brilliant. Okay, so I've now done what I wanted to do. I'm going to head back over to my adjustment tab. I'm going to pull up the exposure of this device. Go, and we start to see, because of the reflective nature of the phone, it really starts to pop. Now the contrast, if you can see what I do with the contrast here, I'm going to ramp it all the way up first. Look at what's happening with the detail around the HTC logo. If I take it down, it pulls away. If I take it up, it starts to just pop out a little bit more. So I'm going to whip out of here, probably going to drag that up a little bit more. And there we go. Now, as I said, I always reference back to the beginning. So I hold this on here. This is what the image originally looked like. And this is, push M, get rid of that. And this is how we look now. So original and now. So you can see it's starting to become a little bit more commercial, a little bit more cleaner. Of course, you'd spend some more time on doing this. This is just for the purpose of the video. I don't want to make it too long, but just give you the fundamentals so you can go off and do it. Okay, so I've done all those core parts. Now a key part is skin tone. As you can see here, she's got makeup on, and it changes in tone, it changes in colour slightly and tone slightly because of the blusher that she's got on her cheeks. Her nose is a little bit shinier because it's more exposed to light, but the makeup artist has done a fantastic job in terms of what we were looking for in muted colours. Now, what I want to do here is use, probably in my opinion, one of the best features in Capture One. There's some amazing features in there, like quick proof and things like that, amazing. But for me, this, as somebody who isn't into retouching or would consider themselves as a retoucher, this tool is phenomenal. So brilliant. I go into here. I'm just going to create a new adjustment layer, and I'm going to call this one Skin. Brilliant. So we've got that there. And then what I'm going to do from here is, as ever, and again we can't see it, so we push M so we can see where the pen is going. Give that a few seconds. Brilliant. So I'm going to just quickly draw around here, and I'm going to use the fill function to fill this in once I've done the outline. And of course you will take more time doing this. This is very much like one of those Blue Peter moments or Cook Show moments, and at the end you go, and here's one I made earlier, because I'm going to spend more time on this and then show you an end product as opposed to do it all with you, because otherwise we'll be sat in front of YouTube for the next couple of hours. So as I mentioned, you want to stage this out, and this is kind of the area I would like to approach first. And again, remember, it's the phone we want to be standing out in this image, because it's, you know, for commercial sort of advertising, client, and their product is the key, not the subject, not the model. So let's just get that in roughly. You can see it's shot at 1.4, so a lot of this falls off anyway. Brilliant. So I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to go fill. Fantastic. Once I've done that, I then head over, and again, just in case you guys didn't know, this top toolbar, this can be adjusted in any way. So at any point I can add in tools and take away tools. Now you can customize this totally to the tools that you do or don't need. So one of the great things with Capture One is you can totally customize this to your workflow. So the one I'm looking for is Color Editor, and I'm going to click on Skin. I'm then going to click on this chap here. This is going to let me sample a part of the skin. So I use the M to take away that, and a part of the skin that's quite balanced. So I'm not going to pick here because it's quite pink. I'm not going to pick here because it's quite muted. So I'm going to find somewhere nicely in the middle, say there. Okay. Now from here, I've got the ability to improve things. So take it up, take it down. I can change the hue. You can start to see the difference. So that becomes a little bit more greener because of the spectrum we're working in. That becomes a little bit more flushed. So we're going to try and find a point that's right for doing this. I'm going to probably pull that up there. I don't want as much as the red, so I'm going to close that gap. We're looking for muted colours, so I'm going to open that up just a little bit. I'm going to drag that down to here. I'm going to up the saturation and then take it down just so you can see the difference. Lightness gives us the ability to make a difference to the lightness of that area. As you can see, as I make it lighter, there's more contrast. You can start to see more of the blemishes in the skin. As I make it darker, you see that. Apologies. As I make it lighter, you start to hide those because it's effectively becoming sort of overexposed and being hidden. I've then got the uniformity. So how do I want these colours to interact together? You get an idea of where we are going. Pull these bits in here, and as ever, if you go back to your layers, there we go, my layers are hidden in there, so I can turn this on, turn it off, and you can see what we're doing. So I'm not very happy with that. I'm going to bring up the where are we? So color balance, color editor, that's the chap I want. Drag these down. Hue, pull that out. Uniformity, pull that up. Smoothness. Hopefully you can see these taking effect. And again, it's all subjective. How do you want to make it look? It's totally up to your discretion. So okay, say look, we've done that and we move on to the next stage. The next stage would be looking at healing and sort of getting rid of some of the issues on the skin. So as I zoom in, you can see I've got a bit of hair here, I've got some blemishes, some spots and things like that. I want to obviously remove those. Now, this is a little bit more of in terms of doing this in Photoshop. Photoshop is very much a graphics tool in my opinion, and can really easily hide stuff and blank stuff out, which is good, but it's a bit of a brutal approach. With Capture One, it's more designed around being more sensitive, and the eraser tools as such don't exist here, so you need to be sampling from other areas close by of that area to be able to make the improvements you need. And again, to do that, we do another layer, and I'm going to call this healing. I've created that layer, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you know what this layer is. So click on here, and it's going to be for healing, but I'm going to use the heal tool. Okay, so what we need to do here is we need to create a sample spot. Bear me 2 seconds, let me pull that out. Let's go B for brush. I'm obviously not going to sample this bit with that part there, so I need to pull that in, and say for instance we pick on this area here. Okay, so bear with us 2 seconds, allow it all to load, push B. So I've done that. I'm going to start to pick on this area here. You can't see that, so I'm going to push M. You can see it. Oh, I didn't realise I'd done 3 spots. So if you do that, clear mask. Oh, I've got a delivery. Hey. So I'm going to clear that mask and start again. So where do I want to sample from? I'm going to sample from next to here and drag that one there. Cool. So we then have to just move around and create these little spots here, and you need to do it in a patch. So for instance, you need to work maybe in this patch here and then this patch here, and the reason being is because there will be differences between those. If you ever want to go back, hold Control Z, 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 that'll get rid of them. Oh, Command, sorry, if you're on a Mac. So let's see if I can get rid of these. And again, if we don't want to see them, we just push, if we don't want to see the pen mark, we just hit M. So you can see hit M, and again, if I do Alt, hold back, you can see where we started, and let go, where we are now. And we can do that at any point, and I always use it just to refer back. So I'm back here, let's go to M, let's have a go at removing this chap here. Put in M, and let's see how we look. Okay, so it's all starting to look okay, and I'm happy with where it's sampling from in the local area, so let's get rid of this little bit of hair. You see, we'll just do little bits at a time, and eventually we'll get rid of it. Now, for instance, if I was to take this and try to do it over here, what you will notice is that hill, that's worked quite well. Let's find another area. So that's why it's good to find a spot that's quite neutral, or sort of sat in the middle of 2 areas, because otherwise it will become too dark. So for instance, if I did it here, let's hopefully see if we can do that. You can see that spot there. You can see it being a bit darker. So let's just rush through, just deal with some of these bits here. I'm going to pop the spot marker back on so I know where I have and haven't worked. So again, we just push M. Brilliant. This just keeps a tracker, so I know which parts I have tackled and which parts I haven't tackled. So yeah, let's do those. Just attack some of these bits here. And I highly recommend you stage this out a lot more thoroughly, just so you do a better job. You know, you're a professional, you're working with professional clients, they expect a professional level of work. so don't shotgun it like this, but just for purposes. That will help. Apologies about my emails coming through. Good friend of mine, Jonathan Posner, me and him were going to shoot. I was going to assist him actually on a shoot on Sunday, but he's had to cancel just because he's struggled with locations and models and stuff, which is always a way with photography. Some things just sometimes don't align, and it happens. Of course, if you find that these spots to heal are too big, you can make the brush smaller. So I've just hit M again. Give us an idea of where we are. I'm going to attack this little spot over here. Attack this one here. And yeah, of course, go through this at your own pace. But hopefully doing this will give you the tools you need to be able to go ahead and do this yourself. So, okay, right, I'm done with that. And let's just say I've gone through the whole process and I'm happy with the results that I've got. So I zoom back out, Command minus key. That takes me back out of my image. I'm just going to go to the select tool and again hold Alt, push return. That's where I was originally. This is where I am now. There's a lot more work to be done. We know that. That's very visible. If I want to turn off these layers, I can do it one by one. And also I can say, okay, right, I quite liked what I did in terms of healing, but I'm happy with the skin tone. So I can just keep that there. I want to make the jacket pop. I can draw that in. Do the hair, I can draw that. But for me, it's the phone. Like I want the phone to be the absolute standout piece. I can bring the background up. So, you know, and also, whilst we've got these all here, okay, cool, we've got all those. Amazing. So that is just a shotgun approach at how I would go about doing a retouch using Capture One. Of course, there are far better retouchers out there, and I wouldn't sell myself as a retoucher, but as a modern photographer, you will reach points where you have to do it. Now, in terms of if you wanted to use this software and get the exclusive 10% discount, the code is AMBLUKE. So AMB Luke. And that will give you a 10% discount across all the products. And also, if you have any questions, please do pop them in the comment box below. If you like the video, please subscribe. If you find the video useful and want to share it, please do. I'd be very appreciative. And hopefully, I'll see you next time. Take care all.